9 seconds based on this progress bar? At least they didn't use the Cylon progress bar that goes back and forth. You're welcome for the Battlestar Galactica reference. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live and back after a long hiatus here on What the Buck. I am, as always, old school. It is good to be back. Coming back here was not something I wanted to do on my own, and so I called some friends, and then I called other people that I owed things to, and they decided they would join me, which is great. But I did have a number of requests with the historic setup for this Super Bowl that if we were able to make it into the Super Bowl, to bring back the podcast for one last hurrah. And so that's what this is. I figured what better way to do a last hurrah than to have some of the best folks that I've ever worked with to cover the Bucks on the thing. And these folks actually said yes, which is amazing. So I'm going to kick things off with a little bit of an intro on names, and I'll let them talk a little bit about who they are. I'm going to do a couple of notes, and we're going to jump right into this roundtable format. If you're watching this on YouTube, realize you're about 10 seconds behind us, depending on your link speed. If you're one of Mark's relatives, you're on a dial-up, so it's going to be closer to a minute and a half. So the best way to interact with this show tonight is to actually tweet at What the Buck, and I will be watching my phone for those questions and get those covered. So with me in Zoom or on YouTube, we have, and I'm not sure what sequence they are, I have Joe Bussell, NFLosophy. He was the nameless, faceless, masquerading information source for years, and then he became publicly known, I don't know, a decade ago, because everything is a decade old to me now. I've got Trevor Sikkema, the Draft Network, formerly of Pewter Report. Once he left, everything in Tampa got better. So we want to thank Alyssa for dragging him out of town and taking the shroud of misery off of our glorious city. We've got Bucks Brief Podcast, Chris Fisher in the house, who had a podcast along with me quite a while back, then started an incredibly popular podcast on beer, which is a topic that never loses. And he's back with us tonight. And then Mark Cook from the Pewter Report. He is, I think, still the editor-in-chief. It still weirds me out that title is editor-in-chief. It has always made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because I don't know who the chief is. But this is our roundtable tonight. And as we get through here, I'm going to start actually in my frame. It's Joe's first. Joe, tell the folks out there listening a little bit more, because some people, believe it or not, may not know who you are. You have like 33,000 Twitter followers. I think only Trevor can compete with you. But tell them who you are and why you're here.
So Joe Bussell, as he said, used to work for the Bucks a long time ago in a past life. Ended up on Twitter after it was all said and done because I wanted to talk Bucks with everybody. It turned out to be a pretty cool thing. But I'm not as fancy and as professional as Trev is, but I appreciate you guys having me on. I think this is going to be fun.
Excellent. Well, speaking of Trevor, we'll go to Trevor next, who has the best video setup of anyone in this room, apparently thanks to our friends over at Loose Cannons. Trevor, let us know a little bit about you and why we need you to never come back to Tampa.
Yeah, big shout out to Christian Stank and Sammer for the setup. They were the ones who got my video game going well. Also, before we move on, I just wanted to let Joe know, because I don't think I've ever told him this before. I thought you have, and still think you have, one of the coolest Twitter handles like in the world. Like that was one of the main reasons. Like when you started talking Buck stuff, I was like, NFLosophy. I'm like, oh my God, this is peak. Like this is where I'm going to get all my information from. And so, yeah, I don't think I've ever told you that before. So I figured what better place to get
it's the credibility.
No, it 100% is. Twitter handle goes a lot into it. And that's why I'm still Tampa Bay Trade, because I like the identity there. Obviously, a lot of people know me from my time working at Pewter Report. Mark certainly knows me there well, because he tried to keep me in line for 3 years, and it was probably his full-time job just to do that. That was probably his title for 3 straight years. But born and raised just south of Tampa. So been all about Tampa sports my whole life. And what do you know, the first time in my life and where I don't live anywhere in the state of Florida, because I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now, the Tampa Bay Lightning win the Stanley Cup, the Tampa Bay Rays make it to the World Series, and now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in the Super Bowl. So you all are welcome for me leaving the state.
Well, thank you. I loved having you around, but I like winning more. So I'd rather come visit you in Charlotte and send pictures of success, because Charlotte's not known for success. So you can share in the success that we have down here. It looks like Fisher is redecorating his room over there. I don't know if he's ready to say hello to everybody. You good?
I'm good. I was just the laptop's gonna die eventually, so I'd make sure I had my charger. That's all good. I haven't done this in a while.
Good.
Give me a break.
Well, tell people about what you've been doing, man. It's been a while. You dropped off the scene a little bit before me. You know, we had joked around or talked a little bit. I think we were drunk a couple of times. We did it about leaving at the same time. As fate would have it, that would have probably been a better call if I had done that. But you did, and you went off and did cool shit. Tell people what you've been doing and what's going on now.
Yeah, I had a podcast. It was called Bucks Brief Podcast. It was the Bucks Briefing before John Ledyard's Bucks Briefing.
Wow, did he steal that from you? He stole that from you?
He didn't steal it from me.
Oh, I'm going
I like John.
after him. I'm going
I
after
like
Pewter
John.
Report and everything they stand for.
Usually at this time of year, I'm arguing with Scott Reynolds about the Bucks should not be drafting a running back in the top 15. But I'm glad that I don't have to do that this year. We can actually talk about playoffs and a Super Bowl. But yeah, I had the podcast for a while. It became too much work because I am addicted to analysis and data and a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to the work that I put into it, and it became too much to do. And it was more fun drinking with my friends on a different podcast that I started up, and I fired that up for 5.5 years, and I just shut that down. So I am now officially fully retired from the podcast game for the first time in a long time. So I'm enjoying my life and hosting some gigs around at breweries and stuff, and just having fun, man. And I'm happy to be here. I was super excited that you were coming back and doing one more broadcast. I don't want to say the last, but we'll see.
Well, it's good to have you back. We always have to have at least one idiot fan, as you have been affectionately titled by more than one person on Twitter.
And I hate Jason Light.
Absolutely, you hate him. You would make faces at him if you had a chance to. So
been trying to run him out of town for years.
Last but not least, we have my buddy Cookie down in the bottom frame. Mark, I don't think anyone really needs to know more about who you are, but I want them to know who you think you are, because you mean a lot to me and you mean a lot to the Tampa Bay area, I think.
Well, I appreciate that, Derek. I don't know that that's true. You have a lot more affection for me than most people, but that's okay. I appreciate everybody that follows pewterreport.com, of course. Just a tremendous year. Thank you, Tom Brady. Thank you, Bruce Arians. Thank you, Rob Gronkowski. Thank you, Jason Light. Business has been through the roof. Now, COVID can go F itself because while our web traffic is through the roof, as Trevor probably knows, their business model, it's tough. I mean, there's not a lot, a lot of the businesses that support pewterreport.com were businesses that were affected by COVID, unfortunately, and the shutdowns that happened earlier this year. So, hopefully, knock on wood, this vaccine gets out. People are going to take it. Let's not make this a political show, but whatever we got to do to get back to normal, where people can get out and about, and we don't have to worry about shutdowns and things like that when we get back to normal. Because, it's crazy, because I really think, and we actually have had people calling us to advertise again for the first time in the 10 years that I've been doing this, but I think it would have been just through the roof, man. I think the phone would have been ringing off the hook if COVID wouldn't have hit. But anyway, we're surviving and managing, and I'm surviving and managing, and I'm excited that you're doing this again, Derek. You're a voice that's been missed and truthfully needed. But I totally get why you guys bow out, because I mean, the amount of time it takes. People think you just flip on a mic and you talk. There's a lot of work that goes into these podcasts, whether you're hosting solo, whether you have, 3 people like we do at Pewter Report from time to time on. It does take a lot of work and a lot of preparation. So, and if it's not putting food on your table, it's taking away time from the kids. And as a dad of a 20-year-old, there's a lot of things I would do differently going back in time. But the number one thing I would do would milk every second that you have with those little kids. So Chris and Derek, you're doing the absolute right thing. And both of you guys are always welcome on the Pewter Report podcast. We do 4 a week now, and we're going to continue that throughout the off season once the season ends next Sunday after the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl. And so you guys are always welcome. If you get that itch and you get that need, you're always welcome to join us.
I just appreciate that. I just want to say real quick, when Mark says that people think that we just turn the mic on and talk football, and there's a lot more that goes into it. I don't know. I remember 1 or 2 podcasts late in the Cutter era where we were basically at this point just watching.
The Pewter Report podcast, when Trevor was around, it literally was. There would be times to be 5 minutes before we were going to do it. We'd be like, who's going to be on today? Scott's like, no, I'm not in. Trevor, you going to stick? Well, okay, I can stick around for a little while. Let's grab Greg Allman, or, if not, a lot of times we just flip the mic on for that one. But things have changed, because
it's
people
different.
actually
It's different dates.
care.
Yeah, I know. It's great.
Different time, man. But you're right. We used to have a podcast when we did our podcast. It was there wasn't a lot of preparation that used to go in the old Pewter Report podcast, and sometimes those were the most fun ones too. But anyway, people like their information and their facts.
Well, the community has grown tremendously, right? As the gray beard amongst us with regards to podcasts, when I was doing this and we had shit, strung up with bread ties to make it work. I still can't believe anyone gave a shit. I still can't believe people give a shit now in some ways, from my perspective. But, the technology's gotten better. People have become more informed about how they can get access to this information, which is great. And that's driven the bar higher. And it's funny, you guys I remember when Trevor started writing his stuff and going into the analysis, I was like, this is what I think everyone needs. And one of the reasons why I quit is because while everyone needs it, not everyone gives a shit about it. They want to continue to say things like, the Tampa 2 was the downfall of all defense. And right, it's the level of stupid is so high. And I'm an asshole and will say that, right? It's willful ignorance, which makes it stupid. If you're going to pontificate and not have the data, then that makes you a stupid fan. But that's okay. You have a right to be a stupid fan. And I just didn't want to do any more content for you. So this night is a roundtable, and these are fun. And I want to say a couple things before we get things kicked off. I see people are already tweeting at us, which is great. We already had a question about the Raptors and whether they're going to be able to pull the quartet. And it would actually be the quintet, because I don't think anyone's mentioned the Rowdies, I think, won their championship as well. So let's not leave the Rowdies out, because they are a kick in the grass, if you all recall. But the community that's evolved, not just in podcasting and all of the other implements, video podcasts. I mean, the technology's gone crazy, which is great. From professional folks, the Bucks and their social media department has gotten eons better, right? The big players in the networks around here, the Pewter Reports, who I consider on that same par as the main networks in the area, and then the independents. I think all the independents have done a great job. COVID is also kicking the shit out of things like getting together, as Mark pointed out. So much of what this sport did for us was brought us together. It brought people together who otherwise probably wouldn't have known each other. Cheryl Spent, for those of you who remember the What the Buck crew, used to say, if it weren't for football and porn, half of us never would have met each other. Like, we'd have nothing to talk about. And so what's funny is you think about that and you're like, holy shit, like there are people who were different walks of life across 31 other cities that I would never have met. Our tailgate is still going. Bucks Life Media took it over. They've been doing the best they can on social distancing and trying to be responsible. And the proceeds are going to our charity, What the Buck Really Matters. One quick announcement. There is a watch party Sunday. It was ticketed only. It is sold out. It is not open like it usually is, because we just can't do, unchecked volume, folks. I'm sorry. I don't have any more detail. I haven't been running that for a number of years, but I know a lot of people are asking me about it. So with that said, I'm going to hop over in the chat room here and see if the actual YouTube chat room is on, because someone is asking if it is. But I want to kick the questions off in this roundtable. And the roundtable format is informal. Everyone get in here. I think everyone's got drinks with them except for Cook. We were showing our drinks earlier. Maybe Cook does. I think he had a bottle of water. Yeah. So he's got some Publix water. That's on brand.
Strong.
So we'll be talking about what our drinks are. The first question is, who is under the most pressure in this Super Bowl? Tampa Bay or Kansas City? And I'm happy for whoever wants to jump in that first while I look at the tech on the back end.
Oh.
Trevor, go ahead.
I guess it's like, who's under the most pressure? I guess it's Kansas City. I'm trying to think. I mean, I never even thought of it like this. Obviously, the Bucks go all in to get Tom Brady, but I feel like you almost have to look at what's happened in the past year for the Buccaneers and know that there were a lot of like stars aligning kind of out of nowhere, even for them to get to this point. It's a lot more work than just signing Brady and boom, you're in a Super Bowl. As much as a lot of people like to think that that's the case, there's a lot goes in it. There was the COVID season, all this kinds of stuff. And I would think that the Buccaneers aren't necessarily under pressure. That's not to say that they wouldn't want to win it as much as anybody else, but I don't know if they're under pressure. Now, the Chiefs, given what they currently have, like one of the best, what people are saying is the best offenses of all time. It's not, whether they'll win a championship, it's how many rings that they will get. I feel like there's a little bit of pressure, or a lot more pressure, for the Kansas City Chiefs to repeat and almost start this Jordan kind of dynasty, Patriots kind of dynasty, like LeBron's kind of dynasty, like all this kinds of stuff. We talk about Patrick Mahomes in the same light. And so for a guy who has that kind of legacy, I feel like this Super Bowl brings him more pressure than it does for Tampa Bay. I'd be very willing to hear what you guys say about it, though.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna agree with you. I think that's exactly what I was thinking. People are expecting. I mean, they're the favorite team. They expect them to win. I've always kind of felt this year, and I've been proven wrong, really though. But I really felt earlier in the year that the Buccaneers were playing with house money this year. Whatever they did, if they improved on 7 and 9, they got to the playoffs. It was about next year, having a full year with this offense and off season and things like that. I mean, let's remember they started Winfield Jr., a rookie in the secondary, and I thought that was a terrible idea before the season started. Oh, you're gonna throw Tristan Wirfs out there? Are you kidding me? You got to play Joe Hagan there some and platoon these guys, and I've just been completely wrong about that. So while I thought it was kind of a house money situation, I still think that there's a little bit more pressure on Kansas City because I think the majority of people, especially casual football fans, are expecting the Chiefs to win and to win pretty handily. But I also expected, Green Bay to probably win. I picked the Buccaneers to win, but I didn't feel 100% comfortable. Same thing with the New Orleans game. While I picked them to win, at no point did I ever go to bed that week saying, "Oh yeah, Tampa Bay's definitely got this game." So I think the pressure is certainly on the reigning champions.
Yeah, I think
you were weighing in. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't know how to define it as actual pressure, and I agree. I think Mark was going in this direction too. Is that I had no expectations this year for Tampa Bay that they would be in this position with a new quarterback coming in, regardless if he's the GOAT or not. We know what happened with the offseason and with COVID and how that impacted everything. And the team was 7-5 at one point, right? And they just have gone on a tear. And they haven't lost since that Chiefs game, and that was by 3 points. So I had no expectations that this team was going to be where they are. 10 wins, 11 wins, get in, win 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. You lose in the NFC Championship, no big deal. From a pressure standpoint, though, so let me look at it this way. Patrick Mahomes, who I think is the best quarterback in the league right now. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback in the NFL history. But the window for the Bucs is much shorter, in my opinion, than it is for Kansas City. Kansas City, I think, they've got a roster set up, and they can continue when you have the best quarterback in the NFL and he's young and he can continue to play. You have an advantage that you can get back in the situation. I do not know if the Bucs will be in this situation next year. So from a pressure standpoint, I think just because the window is closing more rapidly for Tampa, but it's not pressure, right? Because I don't think they believe that they could be there.
Right. Yeah.
But they're not the favorite going into it. I don't think they were the favorite against New Orleans or against Green Bay. So I don't think it's pressure. It's just that they're in more, I believe, what I hate the word, but like win now mode versus Kansas City.
I hear what you're saying about it being a smaller window. Like that's in Windows aspect. There's no doubt that Tampa Bay's under more pressure to get a ring out of Tom Brady being on their team. I think long-term, of course, like legacy goes more towards Mahomes because he has such what we hope is super bright future ahead of him because he's a lot of fun to watch. But I'm with Mark, and I don't want to speak for Chris, but it sounded like he was kind of going down the same way as well because he wasn't exactly sure what this year was going to be. I didn't think this was a Super Bowl year for the Bucs. Going into the season, I thought that they were going to win anywhere from 9 to 11 games. I didn't think that they were going to win the division. I still thought that was going to be New Orleans. And I said Tampa's probably going to, if they're a wild card team, which if they weren't going to beat New Orleans, they were going to be a wild card team anyways. I thought that they could win on wild card weekend, but I thought that they were going to dip out in the divisional round, NFC Championship round at the very latest. I didn't think that this was going to be a Super Bowl team. I thought the secondary was too young. I thought that the lack of time that Tom Brady had with the rest of the roster, it wasn't enough. And I felt like this was all setting up for 2022. Like I felt like, or the 2022 Super Bowl, so the 2021 season. I felt like this whole plan was all leading up to a 2021 season run. And I thought that Brady could honestly play a third year depending on how it worked out. So I saw it as, he signed a 2-year contract, but almost like if they play well enough the way they think to, they would have a third year that they would add on to it. So it's hard to say because it's a very interesting question. And of course, Derek brings the question that none of us have been asked in a week where we've been asked every single question. It's an interesting one, but yeah, I think that it's a multi-layered thing.
Well, and it was, of course, the first question because I'm an asshole, but I wanted to say a couple things. I love the analysis. I love the thoughts. I think sometimes as fans, we project a lot down the timeline. Patrick's young. He's got a long road. I don't disagree. He certainly, if he's not the best, he's in the top 3 for sure of quarterbacks that are playing currently. A lot of what Patrick does is based on physical acumen, physical ability, and health. There's a very fine line between him being able to be freakishly good and be freakishly normal. And so I think sometimes people discount that differential, right? And I think we see it a little bit with his escapability now. Yes, he's still got his escapability, but with that turf toe, he's going to be a little bit limited. And I want to see what he looks like, because you've got Brady at 4,024 years old. He's still playing football the exact same way he played 4,020 years ago, right? And I agree. I don't think Brady's a one-year guy. I think if he stays healthy and upright, which this offensive line does an astonishingly good job of providing, this guy plays for 3 years easily and grooms an heir apparent because he's got everything around him he could want. He's got no state income tax. He can collect all the money from TB12 he wants to. And as Bucs fans, we get a chance to watch a team who, according to Jason Light, and you guys, I think Joe actually may be the expert on the call here about that, cap apparently isn't really a thing anymore. Like, we all worry about the salary cap, except for the teams that run themselves and are like, fuck the cap. We'll just sign whoever we want to. So, it's interesting. I think that I think you guys are right. The chance of Brady coming down here and taking a team to the Super Bowl, winning in his first year, like, that is so above the Call of Duty, like, so crazy. Who could have really expected? If I had really expected, I would put a grand on him at 50-1, and we'd all be laughing, right?
Right.
Someone did. Vegas is going to get it in the shorts, because here's the little teaser: the Bucs win the Super Bowl Sunday. The Bucs do win this Super Bowl.
Wait, somebody put a bet on it?
Vegas is set to lose their ass because there are people that put money at 50-1 on the Bucs at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Oh.
So conspiracy theory seed planted, by the way, gentlemen. If there's some fuckery with the officials, I'm looking for some clown out of. If Joe Pesci can't be found quickly, I want an APB or a bolo, whatever they call it nowadays, on his ass. Joe, what's your thoughts? You were having some video problems. What are your thoughts about who has the most pressure on them right now?
I think it's got to be KC, right? I mean, everybody's favored them. They're -3. They've done this before. They were just there last year. They haven't lost while Mahomes has been in for a very long time. Brady's been here, done this, right? Even at 28-3, he's still calm, cool, and collected. So as long as he's at the helm, we're never going to have to worry about the Bucs feeling the pressure. Arians has been there before, so I don't feel it from the coaching staff. These guys are just going to go about business just the same way that they have the second half of the year after bye week, just focusing on what's important, right? I don't think they're going to be shaken at all. It'll be interesting to see how they come out in the first quarter. It was interesting because somebody was talking about today how since in weeks 16, 17, Bucs took the opening kickoff when they won. It'll be interesting if they win the coin toss. Did they take that first? Did they take the football or did they defer? Right? Did they give up?
They're taking it, man. Bruce
Arians is taking it.
Arians is taking it. Absolutely. I think he's seen something click earlier in the year. He didn't, but for whatever reason, he's seen something. He really feels, and it sends a strong message to his football team, to his offense, and it's worked out well. Even last week they didn't win, but they got the ball first and drove right down the field. And I think, everybody, including Buck fans, were like, wow. I mean, because we remember that stretch where they lost 3 out of 4, and the storyline was they can't start fast. They're awful. Brady's not very sharp right out of the gate. Byron Leftwich calls awful plays, and then since that bye week, man, I mean, they've really been on fire. I'd have to go back and look and see each game how they did on the first couple of drives, but it certainly wasn't anything like it was against New Orleans on that Sunday night game, or against the Rams, or against Kansas City, where they fell behind fairly early and had to play catch up. I think he wants to jump ahead there and send a message to his team, but to Andy Reid and the Chiefs as well. And one thing I wanted to say, Derek, is something that you and I used to talk about all the time. Back when the Buccaneers were just dreadful, and we used to talk about when this team finally figures out, but takes the mindset when they walk into the field, they expect to win instead of hoping to win, things would change. And it's taken a couple of years for Bruce Arians, but we talked to Bruce Arians earlier this week, and maybe it was even last week when, we asked about, changing the culture. I mean, that's such a big thing. And it's such a vague topic, right? I mean, how do you change a culture of a team that hasn't been to the playoffs since 2007, hadn't won a playoff game since 2002? Number one, bringing a guy like Tom Brady in. I think Bruce Arians tried to change the culture some last year, but they were limited because of deficiencies in terms of turnovers and the guy under center. And sometimes just bringing in a guy like Tom Brady, and I guess just bringing in a guy like Tom Brady, like there's, Tom Brady's growing on trees, but that was such a huge thing that Jason Light and Bruce Arians was able to do, because to me, that was the number one thing, because Tom Brady expects to win. He's that 20-year run that he made with New England, and we talked about that, Derek. We say the Buccaneers need to have that New England attitude, where New England never went on the field thinking they might lose. They just expected to win, and it wasn't by how many. It wasn't if they were going to win. It was going to be about how many. And I think since the bye week, that's finally clicked for this entire roster, not just for Tom Brady or Rob Gronkowski or some of those guys that they brought in, but really for the entire 53 guys.
Go ahead,
I
Fish.
remember. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm bringing back the memories of the first half of the Atlanta game, where we felt that the wheels were coming off. They were down 17-0 and put up 30. And everyone was losing their shit in the first half. And not you, Derek.
Not me.
You never do. Never lose your shit. But man, I feel that second half. I think Bruce or Jason, whoever said it earlier in the week, was that Bears game was the turning point. But that second half in Atlanta, where they put up 21 points in the third quarter, ended up with 31-27 final score, but they're down 17-0, and you're thinking that's it, season's over. If they're going to lose to the Falcons, I mean, that's it, right? So to me, that whatever happened at halftime in that game, I think completely turned around the season. I understand they beat Minnesota and they won those other games. Detroit, I forget who the other team was, but
It was
I haven't lost since. But
Falcons
man,
again,
yeah, well, I mean, whatever it was that happened in that half at halftime, I think completely changed the season.
Trevor, you were trying to get in there.
Yeah, no, I just remember, I worked for Peter Report, and I covered the Bucs full time for 3 seasons. In those 3 seasons, they went 5-11, 5-11, and 7-9. It was 2 with Cutter and 1 with Arians. And I remember just talking with Scott Reynolds, my boss, and he would tell me days of when he would drive to the stadium, because Scott's been covering the team for 20-ish years. Wow, it's like 23, 25.
This year was 25, I believe.
It's wild, 25 years. And
yep.
so he told me of the days when he was covering this team, when he'd be driving to the stadium, like he'd be driving up Dale Mabry or Hines or whatever it was, and it wasn't whether or not the Bucs were going to win. He was simply thinking about how much. And he would tell me about these days, because I was in the trenches covering this team that was very bad. And when I was in college and growing up, I could just continue to see 2-14, 4-12, 6-10, 7, like these records that were nothing. And Chris was joking around, when I think this was before we went live, he's like, oh, normally we're sitting here talking about draft prospects, like normally in January, we've already turned the page. We're already having draft conversations. And I remember when Arians came in his initial press conference, and he talked about winning in a way that was kind of like, yeah, we're just like, we're going to win. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, I didn't believe him. The last 15 years in Tampa Bay, I mean, like, I don't know what winning is. I've never watched a winner. I've never covered a winner. This is Tampa. This doesn't happen. It's been 15 years. And so, like, the words that he was saying were almost hollow. But Brady, and this, I'm bringing it all the way back around to kind of what Mark was talking about. Brady with Arians is different, because I use this example. Anybody out there who has ever seen the movie Troy or knows the story of Troy and Achilles, in that movie, Achilles is on the boat with his 50 men, and he's about to storm the beaches of Troy, which has thousands of people in their army sitting there waiting for him. And yet Achilles gets the 50 men on his ship to all believe that they can land before the rest of the army and go win the damn war themselves. And Achilles he's only one man. He can only do so much. Yet everyone around him believes that they're going to be victorious because he's there. That's what Brady is. Brady, for somehow, some way, makes everybody, even in Tampa Bay, believe that they can win games, no matter who's on the other side, no matter who's like offense, defense, whatever it is. Like, that guy being here has made the difference in more than just the yards that he throws and the touchdown passes that he has. Like, he really has made everybody think that they can beat any opponent that they go up against. And I truly think that that's made the most difference.
There comes a time
they
where, so, hold on, Mark. There comes a time where people have to realize it's not a team has to learn how to expect to win. It's every individual has to learn how to expect to win their assignment on their play. And Brady demands that of everyone else because that's what he expects of himself. And he's got the receipts. He's done it, right? That's why back in the day, right, when we brought in Hardy Nickerson, he had receipts. When you bring in these free agents, like, and we tried it, like our beloved organization tried, they went out and got folks that were successful and really good at their positions, but they weren't able to translate that into winning their plays here. Right. So, and they look at a guy like Carlton Davis, right? People listen right now. People are talking shit about Carlton Davis getting burnt by Tyreek Hill in the Week 12 game. They're still bemoaning the fact that Tyreek Hill had 200 something yards. Right. It was a 3-point game. Give him 1,000 yards. I don't give a shit how many yards he catches for. Right. I don't want Carlton Davis ever thinking he can't cover Tyreek Hill. Right. So if Todd Bowles tells him you're impressed man, bitch, get impressed man, and think you're going to win that snap.
Sure.
So, and Brady does evoke, he rips that out of people because, listen, if he screws up, you're never going to be more mad at him than he is at himself. Anyway, sorry, Mark, didn't mean to stomp on you, brother.
No, you didn't, and I agree with completely what you're saying there. I've been asked about it since Tom Brady was signed on multiple radio interviews and things like that. Tom Brady, and this isn't just me from observing this, which part of it is observations, but it's talking to people behind the scenes. Tom Brady doesn't just make the offense better. Tom Brady makes the defense better, but Tom Brady makes the lady who answers the phone in the lobby better. The guy who spreads the fertilizer on the field after practice better. The person who answers the phone calls when people are bitching about their seats or not getting tickets better, because he's elevated the entire organization. And I'm telling you, you can say, well, that's cliche, or that. I'm telling you, people on the inside have told me that, and Joe could probably verify that even a little bit better. He's just demanded better from the entire organization. And I don't know. This is kind of a thought I've been thinking about too. COVID may have helped this football team to a degree, meaning these guys were locked down. They had nothing to do but get better. Tampa is a wonderful city to live and play football in. And a lot of guys come here and enjoy the beaches and the boats in South Tampa, where Trevor used to hang out all the time. And you know what I mean? They weren't able to do that. I mean, Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy Bunting and Jamel Dean, all they could do was sit in their house and watch film. You know what I mean? Play a little Xbox or whatever they played as well too. But I'm telling you, people have been telling me that Tom Brady, it's the Brady effect, and again, probably overused, but I don't know that it can be estimated or whatever the right word I'm trying to think is. He's changed the organization completely. I don't know if it continues after he leaves, but for right now, I'm not worried about when he leaves. I'm worried about Sunday against the Chiefs, and again, I'm with you, Derek. I think they win this football game.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
I think it's easy to say that Brady has come in and pushed these guys to the next level and brought them to being a Super Bowl team. But I'll tell you, whenever I realized that that Arians was going to be different than the last 2, 3, 4 coaches that we had ever since until Gruden, right? I got to work under Raheem. Raheem is a phenomenal coach, great dude, very young and undisciplined team. And I remember when there was a discussion about whether we were going to re-sign Gerald McCoy or we were going to let him walk. And they actively made the decision to let him walk and replace him with Ndamukong Suh. And to me, that was more than just like, hey, we're gonna replace one contract with a little bit cheaper one. I think it was a mentality that both Arians and Bowles and Jason Light to some degree as well wanted on this team, because Ndamukong Suh, everybody knows his reputation. He plays on the edge of being a dirty player and has crossed that line a couple times. Gerald McCoy, fantastic player, but he's also the type of guy that will tackle a guy, then help him right back up. And Ndamukong Suh is the type that is going to stomp on your throat and make sure you don't get back up, right? And I think they wanted that mentality, especially on this defense, to be intelligent and nasty and really get after the quarterback. And to me, that was kind of the changing of the guard, so to speak, and that they were going a little bit different direction, because you don't just let a player like Gerald McCoy go, right? And Derek, you said it earlier, like the cap is real, but there's a lot of work that you can do around the cap. And so if you want a player to stick around, you can absolutely figure out how to make that player stick around. They could have kept Gerald McCoy, and they just chose not to. And so that to me was kind of the start of it all. And it's easy to go, oh, Brady was the key and Brady unlocked all this talent, but we got to go back and remember that this is a work in progress. They've been putting these pieces in place up until this point. And to your point, Mark, like a lot of these young guys, I wouldn't say that they haven't had the chance to go out. It's made it tougher to go out, or maybe less fun to go out now that COVID's around, but they absolutely could have made those terrible decisions to go out and do bad things, ended up getting COVID, and then suffering the consequences of those. But they've chosen not to. So give them some credit. Give Brady some credit, but also give Arians and Light and that entire staff some credit for putting together, because this is really, really hard to do, right? To get to a Super Bowl. It's the epitome. So there's a lot of things that just have to happen.
You nailed it on the Sue thing. And Scott and I took a lot of abuse, and we like Gerald McCoy. We took a lot of abuse from Gerald McCoy, who's blocked us on Twitter because he didn't like some of the things I said. You're 1000% correct in saying it was based on mentality, not production as much as a mentality that Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians wanted to change on this football team. Everybody loves Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy is a great guy. He's a Hall of Fame person, no question about it. But yeah, we know for a fact, in fact, and I think I've said this before, but Trevor can verify this too. Jason Light told us when they drafted Vita Vea, it was between Vita Vea and Derwin James, and they had him they were dead even. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth. But Jason Light said the final factor was he was sick and tired of seeing his defense, really both sides of the ball, but particularly the defensive line, just manhandled at times the year before. And that's why he took Vita Vea, because he knew that the mentality and the change they wanted to have on defense would start with a guy like Vita Vea. And then, of course, they brought in Ndamukong Suh to help shore that up. And we've seen the results and the difference and how they've been able to be number one against the run the last 2 years. Again, Derek made a good point. Tyreek Hill can get 300 yards receiving, and if the Buccaneers win, it doesn't matter. Listen, Dalvin Cook had over 100 yards this year against this defense. They still lost. You don't have to just always just stop the run, and that's going to be the key to your success. It's there's plenty of other factors that go into winning or losing a football game. But you're right, the blueprint was set, and you nailed it there, Joe. That's absolutely true about Ndamukong Suh. And there's people out there that still get mad at us when we say that. Leroy Selman was a nice guy, and there are some, not mean guys on this team, but you need a few of those asshole players, and Ndamukong Suh is that guy.
The only thing that I want to throw into this, and I don't want us to subvert an incredible run to the Super Bowl with talk of Gerald McCoy. It's like I was talking about whether Gruden went with Dungy's team. The fact that that's still a talking point in Tampa makes me want to throw up. But one thing about Gerald McCoy is McCoy was known to freelance. Right. Let's take the attitude and the Psych 101 out of it, and the who's a mean guy, who's a nice guy. Gerald McCoy, despite being an incredible talent, sometimes just didn't do his damn job. He did another job because he was a freakish athlete, and sometimes it worked, but a lot of times it left the guys on either side of him out to dry. Todd Bowles' defense doesn't let that happen. He can't have it happen.
That's
why
Quan Alexander's not here.
Right.
That's another reason Quan Alexander's not here. And, that's absolutely right. But Gerald, I remember having a meeting with Greg Schiano and watching game film. Greg called us in the meeting room, and this was him trying to save his job. Joe can verify this probably as well, too, that, he did a lot of behind the scenes stuff there at the end to try and save his job. And I respect Greg Schiano. I know a lot of people hate him. He's forgotten more about football than we'll all know, whether we worked or worked or will ever work in the NFL again. But and he was hated inside that building for the most part. But I remember watching film, and he wasn't saying, here's Gerald McCoy freelancing. But he was saying, here's Gerald McCoy freelancing. He also said that about Darrelle Revis on a particular play, too, that he showed. It was a Carolina game where Revis was supposed to drop off coverage and cornerback and let the safety pick up Greg Olsen or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact thing, but he was making a point without, throwing Gerald under the bus. But, and we saw that. I mean, Derek's right. He was a freakish athlete, and he could get away with things like that from time to time. And Ndamukong Suh is going to do exactly what Todd Bowles asked him to do, because again, one guy in 11 starts acting like a freelancer, and that can hurt your whole defense. And again, I'm not knocking Gerald McCoy. I think Gerald McCoy is a hell of a person and a hell of a football player, and I hope he's healthy and he can play somewhere next year.
They had the number one rush defense under Shiano as well. Just to correct, they did.
Did they? Did they have the number one rush defense?
I mean, the
problem with stats, right? Liars, damn liars, and statisticians, right? You can have the number one run defense because you can't stop the pass too.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
so it's always
why would you try and
tricky
run
bit.
the ball against a team that can't stop the pass? Yep.
Well, and that goes back to my old, everyone hates the fact that I'm the only guy on the podcast who doesn't want to throw the ball ever. With Tom Brady, I'd rather him hand the ball off 61 times and we win. Right? I don't want to see them throw a pass. If they can't stop us in 4 yards, then don't throw a single fucking pass. Just run the ball down the field, less risk. Yeah, absolutely.
Football,
I'm not there for entertainment.
Football.
I want run a wing tee.
That's
Run a wing
youth
tee.
league
I don't give a
football.
damn.
That's Pee Wee football.
That makes me uncomfortable.
Hey, call it Pee Wee football all you want, bitch. If I can get 4 yards of down, you're never seeing a throw. You won't see a single drop back. But anyway, let's throw this to a little bit different direction. We know that everything seemed to sort of change with the bye, week 12, right? We're 7-5. I think at that point, most of Twitter had fired pretty much everyone in the coaching staff. The front office had cut 40 players by that point. The team was going to be blown up, as is often the case at Twitter. Then the bye happened, and then some magic started to happen. And since then, we haven't found a loss. I want to start with Joe this time. What do you think clicked? And I want you to treat the offense and the defense separately, because both of them have done some different things. And I don't know whether it's the players doing different things, the schemes being mildly modified, or what you think it may be. But what has been your lens on that change in week 12 or after week 12?
Well, it's a really good question, because I think there's a couple of things, right? I mean, I think we all pretty much agree that they kind of coalesced and had a chance to kind of adjust to what they were doing. So to me, one of the things that the Bucs offense does is it helps play defense for Todd Bowles and his part of it, right? So for me, it's everybody hates the first down runs, but everybody also gets really pissed off whenever Brady throws it 60 times a game. So which one would you rather have, right? Now we have.
They want the one that works, Joe. They want the one that works. Only the one that works, and only one that works in hindsight.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And they knew it all along what was going to work. They could have told you before, they just didn't. Right. So, I think there was a little bit more commitment to the run game in terms of trying to be balanced, even if it wasn't effective. And that's not the worst thing. I will rail against the run until the day I die at this point. But at the same time, like, there's some use for it. And I think if everybody thinks of the run as more of a defensive tactic than an offensive tactic, people will better understand its fit within the game today. So I think they did that. I think the other part that they did is they allowed Brady to play more of his offense versus the Arians and Leftwich offense. And honestly, the thing is I thought that they were, if you had asked me before today and actually looking up the numbers, I would have said, hey, Brady's throwing more dump offs. He's not throwing the ball as deep. The funny thing is he's actually, his average depth of target over the last 4 games is well over 10. And before he was barely cracking 8. So they are actually throwing the ball deeper and more often. And then the other thing is getting aggressive on third down. I think on offense, they're not afraid to do what is necessary. And Brady will line up. I know people hate this too, but Brady will line up and he will read. And if there's 9 in the box and he's got Mike Evans in single coverage on the outside on 3rd and 1, sorry, buddy, you're going up top. Like, it's it's whatever the defense gives you, go after that. And they're taking more high percentage plays. It feels like a low percentage play, but whenever there's 9 in the box, that 1 yard run probably isn't going to make it, right? So I think on offense, those are a few things. And then the one big thing that I see with Bowles' defense is, and this is really only over the last couple of games, is he is way less afraid to play man coverage the last couple of games. And you saw it, especially against Green Bay, and New Orleans specifically, where he was playing 2-man a lot more than he's played. He probably played more 2-man in those 2 games than he played the previous 17 before that. So his commitment to letting his guys win their matchups has been phenomenal. Vita Vea, if he's not in that game, if he's not in the last game, I don't think they win that, because he's eating up double teams, which allows JPP and Shaq Barrett to have monster games last week. And then that allows 2 backup safeties to play 2 deep coverage, which takes a little bit of pressure off of them instead of putting 1 deep safety in the center of the field. So I think he's understanding what his players are doing, who he's got out there, and his ability to adjust in game has been immaculate. Incredibly immaculate. I can't say enough. If you were to pick an MVP of this team, to me, it wouldn't be Brady, it would be Todd Bowles.
Fish, you're shaking your head like you're super excited about this.
I agree. No, I agree with everything that Joe's saying. And I hate, I'm like Mr. Turnover, right? That's just like what I've been harping on for how many seasons now. But the 4 games before the bye, the Bucs had 8 turnovers. 4 games after the bye, they had 1 turnover. So it makes a difference. I think the defense has been pretty solid all year. I understand fans will watch and say, why are they playing so far off? And they're just letting Drew Brees throw all over them. They're letting Patrick Mahomes throw all over them. But I feel like when Tom Brady came here, I think all these fans and everyone said, hey, he's going to get destroyed behind this offensive line. Offensive line, they sack Jameis X amount of times. He's going to get destroyed. I feel this. I have not seen, and I've been watching this team for a long time, I've not seen an offensive line be this impressive in Tampa in a very long time. And I don't even know, back to maybe the Jeff Christie years, we're going back that far. Donovan Smith gets a lot of shit from fans. I think this has been Donovan Smith's best year. Ali Marpet is consistent as fuck. Always is. That's just it's Ali Marpet. This is Ryan Jensen's best year as a Buccaneer. He's smart. He was getting the flags thrown, I think, early last year or the year before. I love watching him. He's my favorite player, but I love watching him against the Saints. He's so smart. He baits you into it, and then he's just like, he steps back. And for Stinney to step in the playoffs, I know Kappa was playing really good ball. So you go from Ted Larson, who was, my God, thank God they had Stinney, because Ted Larson in that Washington game, oh boy, it was getting ugly. And Stinney stepped in and is played as good as you would expect. And the scary thing is, I think the best offensive lineman on this team is a rookie at right tackle in Tristan Wirfs. And that, to me, has been the difference this year, because when the offense was struggling, they were struggling, right? And the defense, I think, has kept this offense in games enough. Turnovers made big differences. They came out. We saw what happened at home against the Saints. We saw what happened against the Rams and against the Chiefs. But the offensive line, all 5 guys, you say this all the time, Derek, they've done their job every single game. And I don't know if it's Tom Brady that's made the difference, but the offensive line has, in my opinion, been the difference in this team this year than what I've seen in previous years.
I think you got to include Gronk in that, by the way. And I don't know how we've gone 49 minutes into this podcast and not said right. Gronkowski once. But this is a guy who's got all of the pedigree in the world, right? And you expect him to want to have the ball in his hands. O.J. Howard goes down. You expect to see that increase as well. But all he's done is go in there underweight and lock up some guys he has no business being able to block and do the dirty work and help that line, right? Whether it's helping Donovan sometimes if there's someone out there who's got a quick first step, or whether it's being on the other side with Tristan. The ballet of fat guys that I love so much has been absolutely fantastic, with rare exception this season.
The offensive line, has been outstanding since the bye week in particular. I mean, that New Orleans game, it wasn't very good, but you fell behind. You knew the Saints knew what they were going to do. That's not really a fair game to judge the offensive line on in particular. And that was also a game that Marpet wasn't in. But and again, we all get lucky with writing articles, but it's 2 articles I wrote earlier this spring that the offense is going to go as far as the offensive line takes them. And Derek, you and I are a lot alike in the fact that, we're real simple when it comes to the team that blocks the best and tackles the best, gives themselves the best chance to win. I've saw it. I coached high school football and youth league football, and you coached high school football and semi-pro football. You can have all the skill positions you want. at quarterback and wide receiver and running back. If that's all you got, it's going to be difficult to win when you get to the NFL level. Now, I have seen youth league football where the kids didn't even block, but you had just an exceptional quarterback that could run all over the field and go 80 yards on any snap. But this offense, and then I wrote a few weeks later that not only just the offensive line, I think it's Donovan Smith, because he was the enigma coming into this year. I mean, and there was a point midway through the year, and Scott and I were talking about it recently on our podcast, where we had maybe even written him off as far as next year because he doesn't have any guaranteed money. Maybe you flip Tristan over there and you draft another right tackle, you find one in free agency, because earlier in the year, now I agree, Chris, as a whole, when you add it all up and how he's played the second half of the year, it's his best year. There's no doubt about it. Didn't start as great as a lot of people expected, but the offensive line, there's so much luck that goes involved in getting to a Super Bowl. And Chris is going to spit out his water when I say this. Ryan Suckup. I mean, here's a position that has been, it's a little thing, right? It's right. I don't know that Ryan Suckup hasn't kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired for any of these wins this year that I remember, right? But when you add them up and you add up the consistency and knowing that when you roll a guy out there, you feel pretty comfortable he's going to be able to make the kick. They haven't had that since Chris's guy, Pat Murray. And before that, you got to go all the way back to the Connor Barth and the Matt Bryant years. I mean, they've, and again, I say luck because Matt Gay was going to be the kicker until the final preseason game of the year when they brought Suckup in, when they realized he was healthy, and Gay struggled a little bit in practice. I remember watching him just, missing kicks, and they brought in Suckup and let him kick a little bit. And he has been just the little things like that. Again, those little lucky things, Jason Light finding a guy like him on the street, who's one of the best kickers in the league, that solidified a position that has cost this team wins in the past. He may not have single-handedly won a game in a dramatic fashion this year, but he's been an integral and important part of this offense as well.
I think you're absolutely
46-yard field goal. I'm sorry, Trevor. In the fourth quarter last week.
Yeah,
that makes it 8 points. I mean, I think the decision from Matt LaFleur, I think, is completely different. If Suckup misses that field goal, the Bucs don't win the game.
Nick Folk did hit a game-winning field goal as time expired, and guess where he is? Not on this team. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's not just about the ones that happen as time expired. I just wanted to add, I mean, like, y'all, I completely agree with all of you guys' points on this, but there's no doubt that there's luck involved here. And I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when you looked at them on paper going into the season, this is a team that could go the distance and that had playoff potential, deep playoff potential to it. But, when you look at how they've been down the stretch, okay, let's look at these games here that they've had on this winning streak. Atlanta, bad team. Detroit, bad team. Atlanta, bad team. Washington, bad team. New Orleans, a team you've seen 3 times this year. Green Bay, a team that you already know well. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not trying to take away anything from them going out there and doing it, but who you play does matter. They played 3 really bad teams, 4 if you want to count Minnesota, because Minnesota is not great, where they kind of warmed up to then getting to play Washington at Washington to start the playoffs. And Washington's a bad team with a bad quarterback who is in there. They go to New Orleans, but it's a team that they've already seen twice this year. And if it's hard to beat a team twice in a year, it's damn hard to beat them 3 times in a year. And then, of course, Green Bay. It's never easy going into Green Bay, but it's a team that they already beat well, that they matched up well against. I went into it was the New Orleans Saints week with the playoffs, the divisional round, and I said the Bucs should be thankful they're playing the Saints because they didn't want to see the Rams. I really don't think they wanted to see the Rams. Now, of course, Jared Goff's health went into that a little bit, but I didn't think that they wanted to see the Rams in that game. Derek, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
That's because the Rams weren't shit when we played them earlier in the year. They were busted up and less shit when we would have seen them in the playoffs. I mean, why would we have been afraid of the Rams? Donald could barely walk in between plays.
I think that health would have obviously played a bigger factor for Donald being available and with Goff actually not really being great to throw the ball. But I just felt like objectively, like with Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator with the Los Angeles Rams, and we know how highly regarded he is because he's already a head coach already. And of course, McVay and how he absolutely manipulated what the Bucs did their first time out. I just feel like they didn't want to see him. But seeing New Orleans, it's a team you're familiar with. Yeah, they got more talent, but this is.
But they were a team that curb stomped you in front of your mom, right? I mean, this is a team. They should have been afraid of New Orleans. Like I'm pretty sure there were some turtle heads poking out when they took the field against New Orleans because they had gotten their asses kicked by them.
I
And I would also
disagree.
say if you're gonna
Go ahead, Joe.
if you're gonna use the excuse or the call out that, hey, the Bucks knew the Packers really well. Well, the Packers knew us pretty well too. The Saints knew us pretty well too. That all of those flip complete 180 on those as well.
I do not in any way. I'm not saying that they didn't go out there and do the damn thing. And the reason why I started this conversation saying that I agree with all of you is because I agree. Todd Bowles has been a different coordinator these last couple of games. Tom Brady's hitting the deep ball a lot better. They're getting Mike Evans a lot more involved in the key areas they need to. The kicking game is fantastic. The defensive line's playing well with Vita Vea coming back. This O-line's one of the top offensive lines in the NFL. All of these things truly exist. They do have to go out and do it, but they're teams you're familiar with. And I feel like when you look at the run that they've had, they've either gone up against bad teams or familiar teams. Now, does it matter? No, of course not. I'm not trying to say they don't deserve to be here, but I think I was just saying that's what goes into it. You need a little bit of help every now and then.
And the schedule was a bit of luck too. You're right, Trevor. I mean, playing bad teams down the stretch when they were 7-5 and needing to get in the playoffs, that was luck. All right. The NFL, did them a favor there. And I think having a late bye week was huge for this football team. A lot of people were complaining this team was tired.
That's true.
This team was tired on that 3 out of 4 losing streak and being able to do that. Taysom Hill not being able to play in the New Orleans game. That was lucky for the Buccaneers.
Huge.
And the Buccaneers have been very fortunate injury wise. Yeah, they've had some guys banged up from time to time and losing Vita when they did, but he's able to come back. There's luck too. They've played long enough that this guy's able to recover from a fractured ankle. I mean, that's just good luck and good fortune. And another reason why I think when I look at this football game, another reason why I think Tampa Bay wins. I mean, things have just been trending in their direction. If Tampa Bay was without Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs going into this game, I would give them zero chance of winning. You know what I mean? And here we are. People are like just blowing that off with the Chiefs that they're going to be missing their 2 starting tackles. You can't blow that off. That's lucky for the Buccaneers.
Y'all seen Mike Remmers play tackle?
Well, and the other thing is, like, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about it, and I think I actually tweeted this out, that if you look at what the Bucks had to do to be able to get into the playoffs, and then the road that they had to get just to be able to try to win a Super Bowl, like looking at it from week 1 of the playoffs, Washington, okay, probably a win, right? But still not the best matchup for the Bucks just because of the way that they're built, even with a bad quarterback. But then you got to go to New Orleans, to Green Bay in January, and then you got to face the Chiefs. Like, when you step back and look at that, you can say luck all you want, but holy hell, those are some haymakers that you've got to swing past, right? So I don't want to discount what they've done to 100%. They've been lucky in certain areas. I don't think Taysom Hill changes the game a whole lot, but to your point, like, we're also very lucky in the Super Bowl that the left tackle and right tackle probably aren't going to be able to play. That's going to be massive in terms of how Todd Bowles is going to be able to approach this game, because he's not going to have to rush. He's going to be able to use his second half strategy that he used last week against Green Bay in the exact same way, 2-man, a whole bunch, let his 4 guys go get them. And then the other thing is we're lucky to have Devin White and Levante David, who can cover sideline to sideline like nobody else's business, right? So you get them in zone with eyes in the backfield. You've limited Mahomes' feet, and you've actually got a chance to be able to stop that speed to the edges that they're going to be able to use. So absolutely, we got lucky, but I mean, the teams that they've plowed through to get here is pretty impressive.
And we're losing Trevor. We're losing Trevor at 9. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one more thing. Like, when people say luck, they often think that it means that you like don't deserve it, or like you got something without like working hard or being there. New Orleans being one of the toughest teams in the NFC, yet being a team that the Buccaneers were also able to see twice this year, that's luck. Does that make it necessarily any easier to like go up against them? No, but it helps them out a little bit. Same thing with Green Bay. They faced them already this year. They found some success in it. They've been able to get more tape to it. And so I just wanted to say, like, the run, maybe the word lucky is different, but like the run has helped them. Even the Washington game, like, remember what the Washington game was? What was the big difference in the Washington game? Everybody said Washington's front 7 against Tampa's offensive line. Maybe that gave them a great taste of, hell yeah, playoff football. Like, this is a damn good defensive line. And that got them juiced for New Orleans, for Green Bay, all that. That in and of itself, maybe a little bit of luck. And so in no way am I saying like not deserving or anything like that. It's more of, How about good fortune? Good fortune, kind of the way that you knew they were going to have to beat good teams to get to this point, but it was also teams they were familiar with, which I think they were able to match up well and increase their own confidence and strengths moving forward. And so that's kind of how we're here.
I'm just going to take this piece.
I want to give Trevor a chance
about you saying lucky.
Hold on, Mark. I want to give Trevor a chance to leave. He hit me up.
I haven't interrupted enough today.
That's bullshit.
No, I haven't. I have not interrupted nearly enough. My reputation.
Listen, if Alyssa gets mad, it's on you.
We don't care about Alyssa. Trevor can move down here again.
Dude, all of Tampa cares about Alyssa because I don't live there anymore, and now Tampa fans get to be happy.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. All right, go ahead, Derek.
Does your dog have an Instagram?
No.
Trevor, before we lose you.
Which is
so his hair is better than Trevor's now. So Trevor, predictive. This is a tradition that we did back in the old day. Predictive MVPs on offense and defense, and your score prediction. These other clowns are staying with me longer. Apparently, they're gluttons for punishment, so we'll continue to chop it up. Who's your predictive offensive MVP and defensive MVP, and what do you predict the score to be, brother?
Now, am I saying MVP in the sense of like who I think can win the award, or who's like going to be the tipping point X factor player?
Who's going to be the X factor?
I mean,
and it can be from either team. It can be from. Normally, this is just for the Bucks. It can be from either team. You get to pick from either team.
No, I'll go from the Bucks because it'll be fun. X factor. I'll say Scotty Miller. I'll say Scotty Miller breaking one loose is something that's important for him, even if it's not a touchdown, even if it's just a play that they really need in a play when they need it. So I'll go Scotty Miller as like kind of that tipping scale offensive player for the Bucks on that side of the ball. And then defense, whoever gets the turnover, because they got to force at least one. The name of the game is all about getting an extra possession for your offense. That is football in 2020. And so with Sean Murphy Bunting being able to have the turnover streak that he's been on right now, that's been paramount for them to get to this point. And so it's somebody in the secondary. Somebody in the secondary has to get them a turnover against Mahomes. And it doesn't happen very often, but somebody's got to get it. I'd actually love for it to be Levante. I don't know. We'll see. So maybe I'll just say Levante as an X factor.
I like you going, putting it on the line with Levante. You're calling back to Derek Brooks in the Super Bowl. Yeah. I see what you're doing. I know where your head is. What do you see the score as? Man, Trevor's scared now that he lives in Carolina.
34. No. 37 to 31. Tampa wins.
Look at that. All right. Well, Trevor Sikkema at Tampa Bay Trey, thanks for joining the roundtable. I know you've got to get off to church or whatever you're doing this evening. Appreciate you coming on. Tell everyone we said hello.
I will. Derek, I told you this when I was on the podcast with you before, but bucket list item being on a podcast or anything with you, because I used to grow up listening to all kinds of your Tampa talk. And so anytime I'm on with you, it's fantastic. And anytime I get to join Mark, Chris, and Joe as well. But this was great. I really appreciate you setting this up. Really appreciate you having me involved, because this is a lot of fun. Hope you guys have a lot of fun over the rest of the week. And of course on Super Bowl Sunday too.
All right, take care, Trevor.
See y'all.
Trevor said something there I want us to piggyback on now that he's leaving. We've talked a little bit about the defensive change, right? The ability to play a little bit more press. I have said since the first game of the year with the Saints have employed a defensive strategy, which is essentially we're going to hold and interfere every play and dare the referees to call us. And if they start calling us, then we'll make an adjustment, right? This is a typical coachy thing, right? You see what you're going to get away with, and then you adjust your call. And to be honest, it's worked well for the Saints. I have seen a lot more of that by the Bucs defense after the bye week. I wonder if you guys are seeing that. I wonder if this is just a matter of, because you put two safeties back there that are green, and that's your line of defense with your guys in man underneath. You got to have a little bit of faith underneath, but that aggressive defense seems to start from the back and work its way all the way to the front. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but anyone jump in.
Well, I don't want to be the guy that always jumps in, because I'm actually tweeting out that I need to get questions for the mailbag, but I forgot I have to do the mailbag tonight, so I won't be on that much longer. But
going to let Mark go so he didn't interrupt anybody.
Yeah, see, they should let me go before Trevor. And then the one time I don't want to interrupt, nobody talks. So this is why I interrupt people. But no, I think you're right. I like that. I mean, I think Packer fans lost their mind this week. I got into a debate with some of them this week about these holding calls and things like that. And I don't like this. Well, it's the playoffs, so let guys play. I mean, a penalty is a penalty because you see an obvious hold or something like that. You got to call it. I think Buccaneer fans would have loved Mike Evans to have got a flag on the one where he was mugged down the sideline in the game. But Sean Murphy Bunting absolutely could have been called on that late second quarter interception where he tugged on the receiver and got in front of the ball. But you can't say that the hold at the end of the game on King what shouldn't have been called because other ones weren't called. I mean, it almost took the guy's jersey off. But I like your strategy, man. Hold, offensive linemen hold until they start calling it. Defensive backs, you're right. The Saints are notorious for that. These guys are so physical. That's why they've been so successful against a guy like Mike Evans. And they just, for whatever reason, the refs don't want to throw the flags on the Saints. Maybe it goes back to that Rams game a couple years ago, but it's hard to get a call against the Saints. So what the hell, man? Maybe the refs think, well, the Chiefs are so good on offense, we're going to give the Buccaneers, a little bit of benefit of the doubt to try and slow these guys down. So that's a great coaching point there, Derek. I like that. In fact, I'm going to call Todd Bowles and tell him you should add you to the staff.
Joe, you've been around this a long time. You spent a lot of time with Raheem. And listen, people may have opinions of Raheem. I hope their opinion is that he's a hell of a coach because I know that to be true, especially at the positional level. And seems like he's continued that up the chain as well. You probably got a lot of inside experience and exposure to him working with some great DBs. What are your thoughts about our defensive backs and how they're evolving as the season progressed?
So it's interesting because I think what I see is kind of a learning experience, right? One of the things that I called out before the season that could potentially hurt us was how young our secondary was, because those are a bunch of new guys, first, second year players. But man, some of these guys are playing like seasoned professionals because they're doing a lot of the little things very, very well. They line up with the right leverage. They don't let a guy get inside whenever he has to go outside. And the holding and the penalties that you're seeing, they're not called a ton because they're done really, really well. They're done because they're inside of the body. They're done because there's a hand check, an arm check, a little bit of a hip check here and there. They're forcing them out of bounds whenever they're on the edge. Those little types of things that absolutely change the course of game because, I mean, you saw it, Sean Murphy Bunting pulls the guy. Now that one gets a little bit out, but that's a normal pull that they typically get on the shoulder pads. He just missed it by half an inch and got the jersey. Should it have been called? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, it didn't. It was the right thing, and he does it just about every single play. It's just that was the one where they caught him with the jersey, right? And so I think those little tiny things that are so important to Todd Bowles are filtering through to this young secondary, and they're playing like a lot of vets. And so I love the idea of let's play as aggressive as we possibly can until they tell us we can't do that. Let the refs set that boundary. Otherwise, we're never going to know where it is. And I love that mentality. I love that aggressiveness in the secondary. And he's done a great job of scheming up some really random stuff. I mean, him walking Sue around in the last game off the line of scrimmage to try to mix up, coverages and stuff like that. He can get a little cute sometimes, but he always seems to revert back by the time the second half comes around and he realizes what he needs to do. And I think we can talk about the offense starting slow. The defense starts slow too. Like, we've allowed more first quarter points than any other team in the league this year. So that's not just an offensive start thing. That's a defensive start thing. So I like to see the progression, the young guys getting better. And I think it's going to pay off because I think you're going to see a much different defense against the Chiefs this time around than you saw in week 12.
Yeah, they
have to.
I was concerned, just Joe said it too, about the youth in the secondary. And I think I even tweeted this during the Saints game, is that they blew coverage against Washington. And I think it was Trevor Siemian was the starting quarterback. He just missed the play. And the gimmick play that the Saints ran where Jameis threw the touchdown, I think it was a blown coverage. But I don't watch as much game film as I used to, but I did notice that the play that the Packers were on the goal line, they ran this play to Devontae Adams the week before against the Rams. I believe they played him the week before, and Jalen Ramsey kind of got caught up So Bowles completely, if you go back and watch us play, and I don't know what quarter it is, whatever, I'm sure it's in the second half, but there's been adjustments. And we talked about earlier with, the Saints not having these players, and they lost their 2 starting safeties. And I know Winfield didn't start, but they lost Whitehead during the game. So you've got Adams and Mark, probably better than I am. How many snaps has he played this year? You're going against Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And then you've got Mike Edwards, who, he's played this year, but so give credit as well to the guys who have stepped up for Tampa. But in my opinion, and someone probably said in the chat room earlier, they don't win that game without Vita Vea putting pressure in the middle, which allowed the 2 guys on the outside to eat all day. And that's what they're going to do against Mahomes. They're not going to blitz. I don't think they're going to blitz against Mahomes. I think Vea is going to make a huge difference because I think it's going to open up things for Shaq Barrett and it's going to open up things for JPP. I think Barrett's going to have a huge game this week, but I think it's all because of Vita Vea. Sue doesn't do that. And I know people think I hate on Sue all the time, but he just doesn't. I mean, he's not the player that Vita Vea is when it comes to actually commanding 2 guys on him and still being able to put pressure up the middle and then allow the guys on the outside to rush the quarterback. So, I mean, I think go ahead.
I think one of the things that, we talked about on Twitter before this podcast, we were kind of drifting into keys to the game, which I think is a great place for us to be here at the 9:10 mark. Mahomes is freakish for a couple reasons. One, his arm is just ludicrous. He can throw from all sorts of different angles, and he's got ridiculous arm strength. But he's also great with his escapability. And everyone's like, oh, well, his turf toe is going to mean he can't be as mobile. This is much easier. He looked pretty mobile last week. Right now, he's not going to go scramble for a 64-yard touchdown necessarily, Lamar Jackson style, but he will get outside the pocket and absolutely take your lunch money from you. So if JPP and Shaq cannot have to be the supermen that they've been and be disciplined to get upfield as Vea compresses that pocket, right? The way I called it on Twitter is I used to coach basketball too. It's basketball defense. I don't want to see people jumping at Mahomes. If you jump at Mahomes, you're beat. You leave your feet, you're beat. You got to stay disciplined, like you said, coach basketball defense. Stare at his freaking belly button and drive through it every time you get a chance, because he isn't quite as shifty, but he will make you miss. And I think that you're right. I think that we can stay in, base pressure, and Todd can dial that up when he wants to be cute. If he wants to let Devin come out of a can, or if he wants to creep someone in, a cornerback off the corner, he can do that. But he's going to have to try and play that chess game. And I'd love to hear Joe's thought about this, because when you bring those corners in on those blitzes, what we used to be really good about is rolling coverage behind the blitzer. You set the quarterback up to receive the blitz. If he sees the blitz, he's going to his hot, but you're filling the hot route with someone else. It's essentially a chess move, right? And if you're wrong and he goes to the other side of the field, you're beat, right? And someone may lose their job. But I do think that's going to be one of the critical pieces there. But Joe, I don't know. I make a lot of my shit up as I go, so I could be fully full of shit.
No, I mean, I think I think it depends on how Bowles wants to play this, right? And we can talk about game plans all we want, but that first quarter and first half is the game plan that Todd Bowles comes up with. The second half is, what does the game dictate, right? What do they end up needing to do to be able to win the game? So I think Bowles comes in, and seeing how Casey got off to a 17-0 start, Tyreek Hill had 13 yards in the first quarter before. The very first pass was like 34 yards on a wheel route, if I remember correctly. And then he had 2 other long touchdowns in that first quarter where there was actually good coverage on those 2 touchdowns. It was one-on-one. And I don't think he wants to leave his guys one-on-one with Tyreek Hill. But the same thing goes is you can't leave one-on-one with Travis Kelce. I love Devin White, fantastic player, great playing down the hill, great sideline to sideline. His one soft spot is being in coverage, and he's gotten better as the year has gone on. But that's the one part of Devin White's game that you can probably attack a little bit, especially with a guy like Kelce, right? So it'll be interesting to see how soft, and I think people are going to get really pissed off watching Todd Bowles' defense in the first half, because I don't think they're going to go after Mahomes at all. I think they're going to sit back and they're going to say they're going to play that soft zone that everybody hates, and they're going to let their front four do what they do, and they're going to selectively blitz. Now, if they get Mahomes into a 3rd and 15 or something like that, then they might call up a blitz and play some zone behind it. I just can't see Todd Bowles wanting to be so aggressive that he puts his guys out on an island. It just doesn't make sense to me. And when you're talking about rotating coverage, then that means that you've got a single high safety. And unless you're playing cover 3 behind that, then you're probably going to expose somebody. And even then, you're still getting one-on-one coverage on the edges. So I don't think they go there yet, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what position they put themselves in, because if they're up 14-0, it's a totally different game than being down 14-0. And Todd Bowles may get aggressive at that point and say, we've got to create some turnovers to let our offense go. And you one of the questions you asked earlier was, what changes have you seen in the second half of the season after the bye week? And one of the biggest ones is the offense and defensive schemes have played together. They've interwoven what they want to do, because Todd Bowles says, if you kick field goals all day, you're not going to beat our offense. So I'm okay with letting you drive 30 yards down the field, kick a 40-yard field goal that's a 50-50 shot of you making it in the first place, but I know you're not going to beat me. And I know that once you get inside the 20, I'm good enough and my defense is good enough to stop you, but that's not going to be good enough to beat Brady. Now, how that plays out with the Chiefs, really interesting to see. But yeah, I don't see him being that aggressive in the first half.
Cook, you wanted to weigh in there. You're afraid to interrupt now because we said something. Now you're all shy.
No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to interrupt. I never am.
Will you feel better if you took your shirt off?
I like no. I like hearing. I like hearing.
I'd feel better
Joe's,
if you didn't.
Well, sorry. Here it goes.
Oh shit!
Do it. Do it.
Just kidding. No. I did it for Derek in the pregame when we did the test thing earlier. I ripped
the green room was crazy.
Yeah, I got there's too many screenshots from the other day. I don't need any more out there on the internet. I'm no Kate Upton with these C cups. But anyway, point is I agree with Joe that, you know, Todd's been there were a lot of people, Derek's right, a lot of people that were calling for his job, you know, halfway through the season. And there were very frustrating things that the defense did at times and playing the soft zone coverage when you've got guys that are better in man coverage. But people think you can just play man coverage 70 snaps a game. I mean, these defensive backs need a break too sometimes, and zone gives them that a little bit. I mean, you're asking these guys, particularly against teams that run a lot of vertical routes, you know, it's difficult to chase a guy 60 yards down the field or 40 yards down the field, play after play after play, particularly at home in Tampa earlier in the season. So I see why Todd did what he did. Todd likes to see everybody wants to be able to do as much damage with the least amount of risk as possible. And Todd Bowles did that. And then when he realized in the second half during games this year, what didn't work in the first half, he did a masterful job of changing things up and playing a completely different defense in the second half. And the Chiefs game is a good example of that. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, we'll have to wait and see. I think you're right, Joe, that fans are probably going to be pulling their hair out and screaming, you know, why aren't we? I say we. I'm saying it as if I'm a fan. I'm not. I'm a journalist, of course. But they're gonna be wondering why the Buccaneers aren't blitzing a little bit more. But good point too. Let them move down the field and tighten up in the red zone. We saw it worked last week against Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? They did move the ball down the field a little bit, but the Buccaneers defense played tremendous against the best red zone offense as far as touchdown percentages in the NFL this past season with Green Bay. So, and the Chiefs are pretty damn good in the red zone too, just because they have so many weapons. Again, I hope that the front four gets home. Having those two tackles out, I think is going to help a little bit. But you guys are all right about having Vita Vea there in the middle. He does change things. He was a guy that when he was drafted, I was like, why in the hell are you spending the 12th pick or whatever it was for a run stuffing interior defensive lineman? I didn't realize the impact he made on the pass rush. That's where I was completely wrong with a guy like Vita Vea. And we saw what happened when he went out this year, and we saw what happened last week when he was back in there. What an impact he has. Again, he's never going to be a 10-sack guy. That's okay. He's going to help a guy like Shaq Barrett have 3 sacks against Green Bay, and JPP had 2 against Green Bay. And that was directly a result of having Vita Vea back in the lineup. So anyway.
The Baltimore Ravens defense of the heyday was driven almost as much by Sam Adams as any other player. Now, Sam Adams is nowhere near the physical athlete that Vita Vea is, though Sam Adams at 440 pounds, which is roughly what he was when he played his last 2 years. I don't care what they put on that sheet. I've been next to the man. The fact that he could move at all was a goddamn miracle. but the fact that he could command doubles and triples sometimes and then free everyone else up was amazing. And that also lets McClendon and Nunez Roches get wind. To your point, Mark, it's not just those corners and defensive backs. You want those bigs to be able to be fresh when they come in there. They want to be quick. So you get them in the rotation, things get interesting. With that said, your comment about the red zone is a good one. And one of the points of the Week 12 game against the Chiefs was they only scored 27 points on 543 yards. They had 3 red zone stops against the Chiefs, who have a lot of artillery. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. And I know that you guys were on for almost an hour 20 now. I don't want to keep people too late. We normally do these predictive MVPs. I made Trevor do it early. I want to switch to Fisher right now and put him on the gun. And like I said, it's rare. Like in the old school rules of the Bucks, What the Buck podcast, it used to be this was only Buccaneers players because we just assumed we were going to win because I am a fan. I'm not a journalist, unlike the editor-in-chief down in the corner there. But you can pick a player from the Chiefs or the Bucks, offensive X factor, defensive X factor, and your score prediction, Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, I actually have more confidence coming into this game than I did against the Packers. And I didn't bring this up earlier on the podcast, but I had some nervousness after the Saints win because I almost felt like this team that was their Super Bowl. They got their ass beat twice. I saw the same thing happen against Baltimore. Baltimore had to knock off Tennessee, and then they go and got their ass handed to them by Buffalo. Ohio State needed to knock off Clemson. They got their ass handed to them by Alabama. I was concerned about that going into the Packers game, and this team completely played phenomenal. I like the Bucks this game on offense. I know Trevor went Scotty Miller. I think it's going to be another young wide receiver that's going to make a huge play, and I think that's Tyler Johnson.
Ooh.
I just have seen him come up with such a huge catch against New Orleans, and he didn't catch the ball last week, but he drew the flag, right? And Tom Brady was throwing to him on that play on a crucial 3rd down. So I think he's going to come up with a huge play. I think where you can attack Kansas City is up the middle of their defense. I don't think their linebackers are that strong. So I do like Tyler Johnson on offense. Defense, now I will say this. Now I called my shot already on Twitter probably a week ago after the Packers game where I said Levante David is going to have a pick 6. But Shaq Barrett is going to cause that. So I think Shaq is going to have a huge game. Now, it's going to be because of what Vita Vea does, but no one gives credit to the fat guy. It's going to be the guy who puts up the numbers. So I like Shaq Barrett on defense. I like that I want that Levante David pick 6 so bad. The guy deserves it. He's been here through everything. If there's one player on this team who deserves it, it's Levante David. So I like Shaq on defense and Tyler Johnson on offense. The score is going to be, they're going to keep the same 30-31, 30-31, 31 Bucks, 23 Chiefs.
Wow.
Bucks win the big game.
I like it. We will rotate down to Joe. Joe, what are your thoughts going in here? I know that you were teasing people on Twitter. You're throwing out some great stats, some DVOA stuff, and building a narrative. And I think you were just setting us up to crush our spirits in fandom. What are your thoughts?
Man, it's tough because it's kind of like with the Packers last week. For me, I looked at the game and I said, you know what? I really think we have a great shot at winning this. I think that we have a better chance than probably what most people would give us credit for outside of Bucks Nation, right? And I couldn't decide if I was thinking with my head or my heart. And after a lot of deliberation, I realized, you know what? I really think we've got this. Whenever I look at it this week, it's the same thing, except I lean a little bit more towards, I think KC is just an absolute monster of a team because they have so many different ways that they can beat you on offense. They have Andy Reid, who is probably the best off, and I love Kyle Shanahan and McVay, and pretty much Andy Reid is the guy in the NFL in terms of offensive prowess right now. And so it's really hard for me to get past that. But what I will say is I think that I don't think they have the defense to stop us. I think that we can put up 40 points on the Chiefs if we so choose to. The problem is the more we put up, the more opportunities they get. So I actually think that we play more of a conservative. We probably play more conservative on both offensive and defensive than what most people are going to be prepared for. I think you're going to see a lot of first down runs. it's going to be very similar game plans to New Orleans and Green Bay. A lot of first down runs. We're going to test to see if the run game works, whether that's Rojo or Fournette. Don't really know. Probably more Fournette, since it's going to be more of an inside run game, to make sure that we're attacking those linebackers inside. So if I'm talking X factor, I think Fisher hit it nail on the head. I think Vita Vea is the key. I think Shaq Barrett is the guy that he comes away with 2.5, 3 sacks, numerous pressures that cause other problems. I think on the back end, who's going to benefit from that actually is going to be Winfield. I actually think he's going to be the smart player that's going to be in position. One of those throws is going to go over because Mahomes is trying to do too much under pressure. And I think Winfield is the guy that ends up being the beneficiary of one of those interceptions. So that's like 3 people in one. So I don't know if I can do that, but I'll say Vea. I'll say Vea, but Shaq Barrett's the guy. He's the one that I would call out as the MVP on defense. And then on offense, I think everybody's going with wide receivers because we know that we've got to score points. Ultimately, I think it's the O-line and the running backs that are able to control the game and keep the defense fresh whenever it comes down to it in the fourth quarter, because I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. If we're talking X factor that people are going to see and notice, I think it's Chris Godwin. I don't think the Chiefs have an answer for Chris Godwin. He had a pretty big game last time around with the Chiefs. They can't afford to not pay attention to Mike Evans. Gronk had a big game too, but I don't think they're going to be as concerned about Gronk this time around. If Gronk ends up beating them, they'll probably be okay with that. But I think Godwin is the one that probably tallies, 120, 130 yards receiving and maybe a touchdown or 2. So those are going to be mine. Man, as far as predictions, I think it's going to be super close. I mean, I think it's going to be, I'm going to say 31-30 Bucks.
31-30.
31-30. It's going to be one for the ages at home.
All right. Cookie.
Well, I'm going to go a little differently because you said I can actually choose a Chiefs player as the X factor.
You can.
I think Patrick Mahomes in that foot. I'm just curious. I mean, if he's limited, if he's 70% of Patrick Mahomes, he's still better than 90% of the other quarterbacks in the NFL. But it does limit what he's able to do, particularly when you've got a beat up offensive line. So that's going to play into the Bucs' favor. If he's 100% or pretty darn close to it, which I don't know because turf toes, as you know, Derek, and as Deion Sanders knows. I remember seeing Deion Sanders after a Monday night game when he was working with NFL Network or something, and he was standing on the sideline, and we were down there waiting to go in the locker room, and he didn't have his shoes on. And the guy doesn't wear shoes. I mean, his feet are just mangled up, man. His toes are a mess. I mean, that's a tough thing to have happen to you, right? And as a quarterback, it's got to be even more miserable for a guy that like Patrick Mahomes, who uses his feet a lot and improvises. So anyway, I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes is kind of got to be that X factor. I still think the Buccaneers win the football game. Defensively, man, it's, Sean Murphy Bunting's been on a run. I like the idea of Winfield being an impact player back there. Levante David would make for just a great story, but I'm going to go with Devin White. I think Devin White just helped set the tone for this defense. And, I think he's going to be crucial in stopping the ability for the Chiefs, who have 3 really good running backs themselves. They can run the football if they wanted to. And if Patrick Mahomes is limited, I think they may try and do that a little bit. So I'm going to go Devin White there. As far as the score goes, I think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring because I think I agree with what Joe said. I think the Buccaneers are going to try and limit the opportunities Patrick Mahomes has, as they saw from the first game what a quick strike guy he can be, and let him move down the field a little bit, tighten up in the red zones. But I think it's going to be, I'm going to go 28-27, the Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a close game, certainly. If it's not a close game, I would tend to pick the Chiefs to blow the Buccaneers out more than the Buccaneers to blow the Chiefs out, if that makes any sense. But I think it's just Tampa Bay. I don't use the word team of destiny, but things have just fell into place for this team. And what a great ending to a crazy year and a crazy season for the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl in their home stadium, being the first team to play there, but also to cap it off with a win and be the first team to ever win a Super Bowl in a home stadium as well. So That's what I got for you guys.
I'm going to switch things up a little bit and throw a little bit of data out there as well. The Bucks are 11-0 when they score 30 points. So if we can get to 30, that's a harbinger of good things to come. The other piece that I saw in an article from, let me give proper attribution if I can, Scott Kazmar. I don't see the website on his, looks like NFL Sports, or SBR. Sorry, I'll get the correct attribution in the article. Teams are 3-41 when they fail to hold the ball for at least 35 minutes against the Chiefs. 3-41. Now, we used to talk about this all the time, right? And people used to get so mad at me because I talked about time of possession, because time of possession is defense, right? If you can hold the ball, that other quarterback can't score on you. It's really tough to score from the sideline, right? I'm going to go on the offensive side with a healthy Rojo, as I hope he's going to be healthy. That quad injury was never quite back, but 2 weeks of cryo. I'm hoping his quad feels better. I vacillated back and forth between him and playoff Lenny. I like what Fournette's doing for us. I really do. I just don't know that he has enough juice to have the kind of game that one Mike Pittman had for us so many years ago, when no one expected the Bucs run game to be a difference maker in the Super Bowl against the Oakland Raiders. On the defensive side of the ball, I love the Devin White pick, and I could certainly see him being a big X factor here. But I got to say, and someone in the chat room mentioned it too, the homecoming of JPP to his home stomping ground in Tampa, he is one of those savvy vets who knows how to fuck with somebody, right? He's going to get upfield. He's the guy who can get into Patrick's head. He can bait him into making mistakes. And somehow with half a freaking hand, he can still get more interceptions than most cornerbacks. So I think defensively, this is a gentleman who's going to make a difference. And I think if we all talk about how much Brady wants to win, you can see it. It oozes from his persona how much Brady wants to win. Having seen JPP, I think he's a solid 1A in that list of who wants to win. And I'll ride with that kind of attitude. I see it a 34-24 Bucs victory with a late defensive score at the end as the Chiefs are coming down to try and make it a game. And I do think we get that dagger moment. And I don't know that you're going to be able to contain Tampa, right? I really don't. and I don't know that can be bad, right? This is a town that's been just kicked in the teeth in sports for so long. And I'm here for it. I'm here for every fucking bit of it. So I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. I tried to keep it to an hour 30. I'm at 1:32. Not bad for a Hack fan. But I also want to give you guys a chance to wrap up however you would like to with the show. I'm going to start with Joe, actually, because this is the first time I've actually seen Joe. Right? I've talked to him for years on Twitter. I didn't even know in the green room before the show, for those of you who don't know, as NFLosophy, some people don't even know that this is who NFLosophy is. I didn't know that we use his name anymore, right? I wasn't sure what was going on. So, Joe, you get to sign off however you want to, my friend. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Yeah, there's probably a lot of people that have never actually seen me before. I still get questions of like, hey, are you ever going to tell people who you are? And like, we've been there for a while now. I think it's awesome. Take it in, enjoy it as a fan. This rarely happens, right? It's been a long time since we've been here. I think everybody said it is the dominoes have to fall just right. You don't just get here just by being a good team. You can help yourself in probabilities of getting there, but things have to kind of just fall your way in certain situations. I mean, you can look at the last couple of games and, a couple turnovers don't go our way. And all of a sudden we're sitting at home watching somebody else. So enjoy it. Have a good time. I would be remiss not to mention, I think we have to be careful because Mahomes is a complete player. Mahomes, to me, probably one of the smartest quarterbacks that we have in the NFL today. We get lost and enamored in his ability to do things that physically just shouldn't be possible, right? That we've only seen Aaron Rodgers do, in previous games. And, there's his ability to process and to see things that there's no other quarterback would see. And then to be able to position himself to throw sidearm and no look. And some of it's for fun and some of it is legitimate. And I think that for us, stopping him is the key. Him and Andy Reid together are just absolute monsters. And that is a beast of a machine to stop. So to me, the MVP has to be Todd Bowles in this game to be able to figure out how do you not just stop him, but even just slow him down a little bit to let Tom Brady and that offense do what they do. And Don't be scared, right? Brady's going to go after some shots that a lot of fans aren't going to like. And to your point, Derek, doing the boring thing sometimes is the right thing. And if we can run the ball and grind the clock out, and if we can get 4 or 5 yards of carry all night, Brady shouldn't have to throw but 15 times. I don't think that that's the case. Our offensive line has been phenomenal in pass blocking. They've been decent in run blocking. Our running backs still tend to run directly into the back of their offensive linemen at times for some god awful reason. I have no idea. The one thing I will say is I wish Fournette would bounce it to the edge more often, because whenever he does that, he tends to gain 15, 20 yards at a time. So a lot of things can go a lot of different ways. Really excited to do this, excited to share this with Tampa Bay fans for the first time.
Excellent. That's a good point about Leonard. I don't think anyone expects, it's like the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expects Leonard Fournette to bounce it outside. Right. And when he does, then they're like, holy shit, he bounced it outside. And then he throws the spins and the other stuff on you. So no, it's a good point. Let's go to Fisher next.
Yeah. On my last thoughts about the game too. And I think it's going to be billed as Brady versus Mahomes, but in all reality, this is Mahomes versus Todd Bowles, or it's, if you want to take it a step further, it's Andy Reid versus Todd Bowles. And that's where I think this game is won or lost. Is that matchup and what the defense can do against, again, I will say it, I think he's the best quarterback in the league. Derek, you know how I feel about you, your voice and what I listened to from Bucks content so many years ago and listened to it for many years. And, you know, you had me on your show many times. I'd make the drive out there. We go and do events and roundtables. And I appreciate that. When I started doing the podcast thing, there was only a couple of us fans and the media wasn't doing it either. Right. And Mark, you guys weren't doing it. And I think
nope.
Derek told y'all how many times, like y'all got like, and now there's 250 million Bucks podcasts or some type of content that's out there for fans. And I think I've been trying to rack my brain, because when I did it, it was so hard. This team sucked so bad. Like my first year at 2-14, and it was 3 head coaches, and oh my God, it was so hard every week to produce content about this football team, because you're like, what else can you say about a team that only won 2 games? So, you know, and we try to keep it as objective and as positive as possible, but it has been, and Trevor said this earlier, and I know Scott's told him this many times, when I would drive from Orlando to Houlihan's, when I would drive from Gainesville, when I would drive the Super Bowl year I lived down in Plantation, Florida, a lot of those years where I had the season tickets, exactly what Trevor said. We were going to win the game. Defense was going to show up. Warren Sapp was going to dance. They were going to play Welcome to the Jungle, and Simeon Rice is going to sit there and strum the guitar. It's just, what was the offense going to do that day, right? And I remember going to games early on, and when we were in the NFC Central, Chicago Bear fans, Packer fans, and I was like, God, man, this is just, I'm coming and I'm sitting at home games, and there's more of you where I sat in the end zone than there are of us, and they're talking shit. And that Super Bowl win for me was special because I sat through that. And I think no matter if you jumped on this year because you like Tom Brady, those of you who have been fans for the many years, and it's been hard to root for this team. I have personal feelings and things that have happened to me at the stadium and with the organization. And Derek, I know you've experienced some things too, because you were developing content and you did more than that. You built this community and you were doing charity things. And I know some of the things personally, we had the conversations about how you felt about this organization. So enjoy this ride. It's crazy for me to say this to content creators and fans, because I'm just like, this came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting this, but we've been shit on for so long. It's been such a bad team, organization, etc. Enjoy this ride, and it's special. It really is. You do not know how long it will take for you to get here again. So just enjoy it, regardless of the outcome. Of course, I want Tampa to win. I think they will win the game. But this has been a crazy, and it's just a weird year, right? 2020 was a weird year. It continues on. It's just odd. So enjoy this time for the many years that you've suffered as a fan. This is special. It really is. It's so special that Derek came out and did this for you all. So, and I appreciate you doing this. When you DM'd me, Derek, and I said, absolutely, let's do this. Like I even turned down another interview because like, no, I got to do Derek's first because, like, it's like, come on. So, I have no plugs. I'm at BBB Chris. If you want to follow me on Twitter, if you're in Orlando area, go to Tactical Brewing Company and let them know that Fisher sent you and they'll hook you up. They're nice anyway, but they're right in Baldwin Park, Winter Park area. My favorite brewery in the state of Florida. So
awesome.
Let them know that I sent you and they'll take care of you. Thank you, Derek, so much. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, Joe and Trevor, who was here before.
Of course, Chris, just so you know, Trev sent a message and said, make sure that everybody knows that Chris was first in on Jensen and that he changed the line.
Everybody knows that. Everybody knows he's in love with Ryan Jensen. And
I know.
And the kicker.
I mean, it's Gerald McCoy is not my favorite Bucks player. It's been Ryan Jensen for how many years? And I'm a Pat Murray guy, but I'm still like, Ryan Jensen guy. Dude, but you, Derek, I think, Derek, you know the moment. And I'm trying to think of the game. It was Baltimore or someone. And I'm not going to call out who our center was at the time. But Josh McCown was getting just fucking destroyed and on his ass. And I'm like, can we get someone on this line? And they just would like watch him. And like, sorry, Josh, like, know, like, can we just get an enforcer on this line? Like,
we had a little bit of Joe Hawley, but he was only 127 pounds. So you could only do so much.
And this is pre him too.
Evan Dietrich Smith.
Yeah, EDS,
I wasn't going to say it, or Evan Smith now, whatever his name is. But so
like
much, Mark, that I was like, can we get Matt Patchen? Like, Matt Patchen probably won't do any better, but at least he's going to beat your ass if you touch his quarterback. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
All right, Cookie, wrap us up like only you can wrap us up, brother.
Don't put any pressure on me. First of all, you're the original, Derek. You are the reason that a lot of people are doing this podcast thing. Sometimes I want to curse you for that because there's so many of them out there. But in all seriousness, I mean, you were an inspiration to us at Pewter Report, something that I tried to convince Scott we needed to do early on. And after I got involved with you and joined you so many of those Thursday nights at your compound in Valrico. And I miss seeing the boys, miss seeing the wife, miss seeing the dogs, miss seeing you yelling at the dog, miss seeing the toilet paper destroyed when we would lock him out of the room and we would come back from the podcast and to be an entire roll of toilet paper destroyed because I left the bathroom door open and Derek would yell at me for that.
Always
so
professional.
Anyway,
always.
Yeah, we had such a good time, man, and I'm glad you did this because you have been a huge inspiration. And as I used to always say when I would do the podcast, the podcasts and all are great, but what you helped inspire as far as the community things go, those things are more important. I've been involved with you guys over the years. You do the things. And Cheryl and your guys, I know you're not as involved now as you have been, but again, that's something that you started and inspired a lot of people, and that's what's impressed me the most about you. You're just a good human, man. You're just a good person, and the world needs more Derek Fourniers out there, not just for football content, but just in general. So. Anyway, I just want to thank you for being an inspiration to me and Pewter Report. And I hope this isn't the last one that you ever do. If we got to make the Buccaneers go to the Super Bowl again next year to pull you out of retirement, let's do that. But the door is always open at pewterreport.com for you to join us, Chris, Joe. Hey, look, if we're doing 4 a week for the next, till football season starts again, I might be calling you guys on a regular basis, but we'll definitely need some guests and some help because all you guys are tremendous. Chris, you're another guy that helped me out tremendously when we first started. I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't know anything about microphones and mixing boards, and I learned so much watching Derek. So again, Pewter Reports podcast would not be anywhere near what it is today without you, Derek, and even you as well, Chris. So thank you for that. That's all I really got to say. One other thing I want to say briefly. As you guys were saying, for the long suffering fans, I remember the very first football game. I sat down with my dad when I was 7. We were late December Sunday, a late game, and the Buccaneers were playing the Saints, and they won 33-14. And it was the very first game they ever won, and the first game I watched, and I thought to myself, man, these guys are good. They're going to be really good. This is cool. I'm going to follow this football team. And then of course, a couple years later, then the NFC Championship game, and then they went on that 17-year run where they were god awful. I was spoiled initially. we were spoiled in 2002 because we thought that might continue. Chris is right. You don't know when this is going to come back. So soak it in, Buccaneer fans. Soak every minute of it up, because it ain't easy to get here, man. But you guys deserve it. The fans deserve it because they've stuck with this team through the thick and thin, and it's been a lot more thin than thick over the last 12, 14 years anyway. So this game is for you guys, and I hope the Buccaneers can come through and win for the fans out there, the long suffering fans. That's all I got.
Appreciate it. Very, very kind words. The quote that got thrown in the chat room was your quote about the world needs more Derek Fourniers. Listen, I have been surrounded by amazing people like you guys and Cheryl and Matt and Chris and the Evil Twins and Stuck and these folks that you meet over time. We always said it was time, talent, and treasure. And depending on what phase of life you're in, you may be able to give a different amount of each of those. Usually you can find time, or you can find a talent, or you can write a check, whatever, but make a difference and make those connections. And you see things like, I was kind of hoping for Buffalo to make it in here. Because I have a dear friend from Buffalo who got a chance to go on the draft stage, who lost to cancer, right? So you have these friends you make across the league, and you don't realize you have family in 31 other cities. And I won't belabor this point because I know we're getting a little bit sappy here at the end, but I've been hammering this entire playoff run. Not the normal pounding the chest, go Bucks, screaming and ranting, which I love. And I love we got a lot of people out there doing that now, but every minute. We have 60 minutes of football left. 60, barring freakish overtime, right? Enjoy every one of them. Every one of them counts. I don't give a shit if we're down 17-0 or up 17-0 after 15 of them, because there's 45 more, right? And then after this year, we don't get more for another offseason. So it's been a dream season, and it's been a great run getting to meet folks like you. My dad would have loved the fact that I got to meet people that are real media folks and worked in the front office and all sorts of cool shit that I never thought I'd do. So to you folks out there listening live, thanks for tuning in this evening to the sort of janky technical version. I know it probably made Fisher's skin crawl because he's a more technical guy when it comes to podcasting than I am now. But appreciate it. And we did have a request. When the Bucks win the Super Bowl, we will do one final What the Buck podcast, unless they make it to another Super Bowl. And then Cook, you can probably convince me with some banana pudding to do something else then. So
yes.
For Cookie, for NFL Philosophy, Joe Bustle, for Chris Fisher at BBP, Chris, and for Trevor Sikkema, who is thankfully in Carolina, no more to bring the dark shroud of defeat and sadness over the city of Tampa Bay. Thank you, Alyssa, for dragging him out of our beautiful city. I am Derek Fournier, old school, and we will see you after the Super Bowl. Go Bucks.